This episode of Coffee Talk is brought to you by Burden Accountants and Advisors.
Welcome to another edition of Coffee Talks with The Real Deal. I'm very pleased to have our guest today, Jimmy Kuhn, the president of Newmark, really a legend in the industry. He's been around long enough to deal with the 70s downturn in New York, the Black Tuesday in the 80s, in the 90s, starting a brokerage business when nobody was thinking about brokerage. And and obviously going through everything else that happened after. And I really want to get his take on how the last year has been on him and how he compares this to sort of other scenarios that New York and the country has had to go through in the past. Jimmy, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure and honor to be here, Amir.
Jimmy, a lot of people don't know this. I'm confused by it. I've been in the business for 18 years. But what is the ownership structure of Newmark? Because I always see, Jeff Gorell, I see Barry Gostin, I see you, and there's so many presidents and CEOs. Who runs the show there?
So let me take you on a history lesson, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Barry and Jeff's father, Aaron Gorell, started a real estate business. Actually, Aaron started it years ago, and they joined him in '78. And from 1978 to 1990, they bought about 8 million feet of real estate, the three of them together.
But also paint a picture of 1978 was a terrible time for New York, right?
Well, 78 was a great time for buyers.
Okay.
Coming out of a recession.
That's the period of Bronx burning, right? That was the period where.
Right. President Ford said drop dead on the cover of the Daily News. So coming out of that, if you were fortunate enough to have access to capital, it was a great time in our history to buy real estate. And from 1978 to 1990, Barry and Jeff and Aaron Gorell bought a lot of real estate. At the same time, I was still partners with Bernie Mendick and David Greenbaum, and we bought about 11 million feet of office space in New York City.
I want to understand the thinking here. So the city is totally contracting, buildings are being burnt down, people are abandoning the city, but somehow you guys were like, well, couldn't believe our luck. This is amazing. What made you think that there was going to be a,
Sure.
comeback?
Youth.
Yeah, right.
So, Bernie Mendick told me one day that Harry Helmsley, would buy something at 10, he could never buy it at 100. And what that meant was that when you come out of any of these recessions, you have a changing of the guard, because the young, enthusiastic, smart real estate executives have no baggage. They have no history. They think something's cheap and they're going to ride it up. And so in 1978, Barry and Jeff and myself in two separate places believed in New York. I was born in Stuyvesant Town. I was a kid with no money, and we had a fire in our belly, and we wanted to buy real estate. And so I joined Bernie. I was a kid, and Bernie had a stellar reputation, from his partnership with Larry Silverstein for 20 years. You may not know that. And when they broke up, I joined Bernie as head of acquisitions and a small partner. And so in that time period, from 78 to 1990 was a great period to buy real estate, especially from 1978 to 1986, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to speak for Barry, but I do know, because he said it a number of times, in 1990, he said to Jeff, I think it's time to stop. I would like to start a brokerage company. And Jeff said, you're out of your mind. I'll run the real estate. You go do the brokerage company.
Who said that? Who said I'm going to run the real estate?
Jeff Gorell.
And that's what Jeff. 1990 was terrible.
Terrible.
New York real estate. I mean, it was as bad as you could.
That's the start of that recession. Yes. So a year and a half later, Barry wanted to build the company up, and he wanted somebody he considered to be fairly institutional. I had a background in my institutional partners with Bernie Mendick were, everybody from JP Morgan Chase Investors, Bear Stearns, Allen & Company, Equitable. And so I joined Bernie. I joined Jeff and Barry. Jeff was still part of the company in 1992, but he was running the real estate, and Newmark was managing and leasing his assets. Mm-hmm. And so that was the start. where Barry and I together started to grow the company. And Barry was doing a lot of tenant rep in those days, and I was doing a lot of landlord rep and some investment sales in those days. And of course, we were a small company at that time, and we had formidable competition. And we got to a point around 2000, we realized we had to go national. And then in 2011, Barry had been on a board with Howard Lutnick, and Howard really respected Barry, and Barry really respected Howard. And Howard decided he would buy Newmark.
Mhm.
He would buy us into his company called BGC.
Right.
BGC is an interbroker dealer, and people didn't really understand the synergies, but Howard wanted to incubate Newmark, and he was a great partner of ours because he invested a ton of money in growing our business and allowing us to expand.
Mhm.
And I would say the seminal point in our evolution was in 1994, 2004, when we bought ARA, which was one of the top 3 multifamily brokerage companies in the country.
Mhm.
And then in 2014, we bought ARA. 2015, we brought on Rob Griffin, was one of the top investment sale brokers in the country. He was at the time.
Where was he?
Excuse me?
Was he in New York?
No, he's Boston.
Boston, okay.
And he brought his whole team with him. And then a year later, we got Kevin Shannon, who was one of the top brokers in the country on the West Coast.
Right.
And that were the 3 seminal moments, I think, in building our company under BGC.
Right.
And and then of course the company grew and the stock grew, and then Howard decided with Barry that we would spin out Newmark. Cantor Fitzgerald was our largest stockholder,
Right.
which Howard owns, right? And so in 2011, Howard bought us. The
Right.
next year we bought Grubb and Ellis out of bankruptcy, and then we bought. I don't know the exact amount of companies, but it was certainly over 40 over the next some odd years.
So you guys use all that sort of public money to grow,
So
basically.
that's why people go public, to use the capital, the public markets.
And then for the existing people, there was always this talk at Newmark that some of the people who stayed at Newmark, they didn't like the idea that the stock didn't perform the way it did, and they had restrictions on being able to sell them or whatever. And they also felt like they were tied to Newmark as a result of it because their stocks were held up there. Was that a difficult thing to be able to recruit new people and new talents there?
No, I think that was more gossip than truth. I think that Newmark has always been a company that's very, very collaborative, that has great access to the top of the company. We always said, Barry knows you, and I used to say, we work for the brokers. They have direct access. They can call me anytime, call Barry anytime. And the stock, has had ups and downs, but it's a great company, great market cap compared to where we were, and it's performed now very well over the last 3-4 months. I don't think that was really ever an issue because we don't lose a lot of people.
Right. Is Wall Street urging you guys to buy back some of the stock now since it's still below the IPO?
You would have to ask Howard and Barry. I don't really get involved in that part of the business. And even if I did, I probably couldn't talk about it. So,
but as a stockholder, are you interested in buying back more stock now that it's below the IPO?
I don't think it's appropriate for me to talk about that, but I will tell you that at times during the evolution of the company, I have bought stock in the open market, and I've taken most of my commissions in stock over the years. So I believe in the company. I can only tell you what I've done. I can't tell you anything that gets into the weeds.
I understand. Obviously, it's not a great time to be a commercial broker or retail broker. The only sort of brokers who are doing great right now are the debt brokers, obviously. But how
can I step in and disagree with you?
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna finish it with a question, but jump right in.
No, ask your question and then I'll jump in.
Well, I want to hear your thoughts on that. But I was going to ask you, obviously you believe in brokerage. You guys started a brokerage when nobody wanted to. You guys were investing in real estate when nobody wanted to invest in real estate. So I feel like we're going through the similar kind of a cycle. And I'm just wondering, how are you getting that message to your brokers and to your team that, like, if we can, I met with Jeff Gurral, and one thing that he said to me that really resonated was that, look, if you can keep anything long enough, be able to sustain it long enough, your time will eventually come and you'll beat out everybody else who wasn't able to sort of sustain.
Okay.
So
let me answer your question. When in March 16th, I left the office, for a long time, and I felt that it was a great time in this kind of environment to help our brokers and help our clients. And I'm talking about our clients all over the country. I think you can't focus on one city when I answer this question for you. And that is, we started having calls with the top 100 investors with our entire platform. And our platform is very collaborative. And they show up every week for now 52 weeks. Every time we have a call with one of our top institutional multi-market investors. And it was an ability to showcase our platform and condense maybe 10 years of meetings into 1 year. And we did it Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. But here's the point. We found over the last year that there were many asset classes, and we did great. The life science business in markets like San Francisco, San Diego, Seattle, Boston, Cambridge, was tremendous. We sold somewhere around plus or minus $4 billion in life science real estate, plus a number of $1 billion in sites to convert to life science. We were number one in life science in the country. We were number one in many of the alternative fields. We did great in self-storage. We did great in medical office buildings. We did great in logistics, in industrial assets. We did great in the sale of apartment houses.
But basically,
in growth markets.
Let's go into the sectors and the silos that we're going to, like, where there's opportunity and where there's focus, right? So, and that was the message that you were sending to these guys?
We were fortunate that we went into the alternative sectors 3-4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when they started to blossom, we were there to help our clients acquire those assets. Life science is and along with industrial and logistics are two of the hottest markets since the pandemic. And in fact, the cap rates in so many of these markets are equal to or lower than 12 months ago. Mm-hmm. And so you say that it's not a great time to be a broker. It's a great time to be a broker when everybody around you is scurrying around trying to figure out, woe is me, what am I going to do? And if you reach out to your clients in bad times and you give them on-demand information, you give them metrics, you hold their hand when you're not necessarily going to do a transaction, mm-hmm. that'll come back in spades as you go on in the future. And so I think that it is a great time to be a broker, but you have to work harder than you did before. Mm-hmm. You have to out-prepare, outwork your competition. You have to show your clients that you're interested in them, even if they're not ready to buy. Many of the clients in the first 3 months says, we're out of the market for a while. We didn't care. We educated them every month. And then guess what happened? All of a sudden the spigot opened and they started buying. That now might have not have been multi-tenant office buildings, but it was office buildings with 10 years of, we call it WALT, long-term leases, medical office buildings, life science office buildings. I would like to go back for a second, Amir, and talk about this last year, because it's not just about real estate. I think what you had to do over this past year is look inside yourself and say, what's important in your life? Now, I preface all this by saying I'm blessed. I'm successful. I have the financial means to do things, and not everybody in the country, sadly, had that. And we learned, not that we didn't know it, but we learned about the inequality in the country. And it's a very, very fine line, walking the balance between success and trying to help the inequality situation. So here's what was important to me. obviously Newmark was very important to me to get in front of our clients. I got to see my kids. Two of them live in California, one live in Florida. I got to see them more in the last year. They came to live with us. That's a blessing. Not everybody had that. People were stuck in these apartments in some neighborhoods. They didn't have access to services. So I count my blessings every day. I have, you may or may not know, I have a musical background and I have a band. And of course, we couldn't play in the bars or the casinos,
Right.
but we did a few charity benefits, and we did them outside. We did a drive-in benefit to raise money for the West Hampton Performing Arts Center.
So the last year allowed you to focus on a lot of things that were sort of outside of your actual profession.
We did a streaming concert for all of the Rudin tenants in New York. And then, most importantly, I found this group in Riverhead, Long Island, the Butterfly Effect Group. And it was a woman named Tawana Feefold, who started in Riverhead with 8 Black women, and she has 400 now. And she developed this safe place for women. And I said, you know, I'm chairman of the West Ham Performing Arts Center. We have this wonderful student acting program. We have 100 students, a lot of them blue collar working students, some well-to-do.
Right.
And my wife and I wrote a scholarship to this organization so they could send these African-American Latino women to our theater to get the same kind of acting training. And that was the best thing I did during the pandemic. So
it seems like you guys did a lot of that, right? Like you and your wife also donated $1 million to NYU for more diversity. I mean,
I wouldn't have given that number, but you are correct. We did that 12 years ago. Yeah. We started a scholarship for minority students.
That was 12 years ago. So that wasn't as a result of the last year of unrest, social unrest.
No, but it's a continuation of what I think successful people should do. If you don't give back, why are you working? You want to take care of your family, but you want to take care of those who can't afford it. And I did that at Syracuse. I did it at NYU. And now out on the island doing this with this great, fantastic woman who started this issue. So I'm sorry, I don't want to divert too much, but I also wrote a song, a COVID anthem, because in May, I was so down about what was going on in New York and all the people who were getting sick. And I wrote a COVID anthem. And, you know, I did it for myself. And then I put it up on Spotify, and then I entered it into one of these songwriting contests, and I won. And so I don't think I was their demographic.
You definitely include that link in the body of this.
It's on Spotify. It's called "Morning in America." I don't sing it, fortunately, but I wrote the words and music, and it's about the COVID. You know,
but let me ask you this: so you know, when this whole social unrest thing sort of happened, it happened on top of the pandemic, right? So it literally compounded everything and created this tension in the country. At any point were you like, well, you know, obviously you guys were, helping with diversity and things like that before, but while this was happening, were you like, hey, you know what? This has opened my eyes to this. And you know what? Hey, we can do this better. As a company and as someone who manages, thousands of people, like what were the changes that you were like, you know what, this has opened my eyes and I think we can change things here and improve things there. What were some of those things that happened for you, those realizations?
Well, look, I think, as I said to you, you go back in my history. I don't really love to talk about myself, but you asked the question,
Well, this interview is about you, Jimmy, so you can't help it.
So in 1985, I changed the name of the organization from Young Men's Real Estate Associates to Young Men's and Women's. That was a seminal point in time, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. And then
that was in 1985.
Yeah. And then 12 years later, 12 years ago, when I started the scholarship at NYU, the reason was the industry said, we cannot find minority candidates. And I said, if you can't find them, we'll develop and educate them. Mm-hmm. So when you say open my eyes, I didn't need my eyes opened to the fact that we needed to help those who needed help. But I think it opened everybody's eyes that there is systemic racism in the country, that there is inequality in the country, and that, if you are a successful person, you owe it to yourself. You're part of this country. I love this country for all its great things and its warts. And I think that it just opens your eyes, especially during the pandemic, about how difficult it was for some of these communities that didn't have access to services or testing or vaccines. And hopefully that we're going to rectify it. It's not going to happen overnight, but
what were some of the direct things that you did, short of actually like writing checks? Obviously, you're a very generous guy. You're part of, I think half of Syracuse has you on their different buildings. But but things that in terms of like management and governing of your company, what were some of the things that you were like, we need to apply this going forward as a result of, this movement?
look, I think Barry Gosson wrote a beautiful letter to the company to talk about how we needed to do better. Because even what I've done, I need to do better. We can always do better. And so you've seen not just from Newmark, but from many companies like Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs, where they've said, we need to make more of an effort to hire more women, more minorities into the company. And I have always said, it's not just about hiring them, it's supporting them, it's training them, it's being mentored to them, because real estate is not such an easy business. Now, I will tell you what's really been great has been watching the progression of women in the industry in real estate. And I'm not suggesting that we've gotten all the way there, but I will tell you that when I started to diversify the NYU Shack board, I found I didn't have to sit down and figure out where am I finding great women. They're out there. And we've diversified our board. In West Hampton Performing Arts Center, I think our board is 80%, 90% women. So I think that Barry, as our CEO, is committed to fighting the inequalities of and trying to help diversify the company.
What are some of the ideas, outside of just being committed, like what are some of the ideas that you guys are implementing? So what are some concrete stuff that you guys are doing to sort of change things?
Well, I think when you say how you're going to change things, I think you have to go out and try to hire great people and great diversity. So I don't, I think that we have our head of human resources has set up a diversity committee, in the company, and I think that we're looking at every aspect of how we can integrate people of color, more women, and make the company more diversified. It's not like I have to do this because it's diversity. Your company will never be a true company of ideas without a diversified base. And it's not just at the bottom, it's at the top too. So I think that's really important. And
what is the argument against people who say, look, we're a company, we are beholden to our shareholders. Our only responsibility is to hire the best people we can. If we have to silo them in like different genders and different races, we can't be expected to do the best that we can do by saying like, look, we need to place someone of this color into this position, and we need to have a woman in this position.
No, it's not like that. You have to, there are great people. You don't have to say, I have to compromise to hire great minorities. You have to work to find them. You just can't put something up on a bulletin board and say, we want to hire minorities. You have to go out. You have to go to the top Black universities and try to find, you go to the community colleges. You have to go and look for great candidates. You'll find them. It's not a compromise.
I know it's just it's hard enough finding a talented person to come to you, and to actually have to go out there and selectively.
We owe it to society, no matter how hard it is to get there. We've learned that over the last year if we didn't know it before.
Well, that's a great way to look at it, and hopefully more companies can look at it that way. I am really curious to see how things are going to be impacted moving forward. I mean, for us personally, as a newsroom, we always argued that, look, people would always complain that how come you're not highlighting enough women and people of color, and the fact is that there really isn't that many of them out there. Like if there's a woman developer, we would cover them, but by the fact that they were a woman developer, that was novel enough for it to be a headline. But you're right, and the fact that it does take effort, it does take resources to actually do that. And another thing we looked at personally was that we actually need people of color to tell those voices. It's as a journalist, you're supposed to be unbiased. and just, tell both sides of the story in the most unbiased way. But I feel like if you understand that culture, if you understand the people you're writing about, you could do a lot better pieces, and we're doing that now, which was new for us. I'm going to be honest with you. This is something that we've been around for 18 years, and this was the first time we actually thought about it. It was as a result of the movement that we started to think about that. Obviously this past year has been very tough for everybody, and especially for commercial brokerage. About 2 years ago, Cushman & Wakefield came to buy you guys out. In hindsight, do you wish you had done the deal?
First of all, I'm not sure that's true. I wouldn't know, because if they called, they would have called Howard or Barry.
But I'm so sure those guys would have called you, Jimmy. I mean, if something like that comes up, I'm sure.
No, I can tell you, I never got a call. Okay, I can't speak for anybody else. I don't think that was true. And I will tell you, it's not about Cushman or CBRE or JLL or anybody else. We are Newmark.
Mm-hmm.
We don't regret staying Newmark. We think we have the best culture in the brokerage business. We think that we're the most collaborative in the brokerage business. We think we have the best talent pound for pound in the brokerage business. We're just not as big. And I don't think we want to be as big. Mm-hmm. We want to be different. We don't want to be a commodity brokerage company. I think Barry is always ahead of the curve. He says he sees around corners. I think I've been at Newmark almost 30 years. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's, apparently they had a lot of debt, and that's where, from what I read, is that's where you guys lost interest, is because you didn't want to have to deal with Cushman's, the amount of debt, because they were trying to go public.
Well, that wasn't my quote, but I wouldn't want to be part of, and it's nothing against Cushman or CBRE or JLL. They're good companies. Mm-hmm. They're different than us. And I think we attracted an enormous amount of brokers from all those companies because they wanted something different. I'm not suggesting they want that we're better in every aspect, but we're different.
But what is the plan for you guys to return to office? I mean, there was this, I felt that when we were first allowed to come back to the office, the first people to step forward and say, hey, people should come back to the office were the real estate people. But there wasn't like a movement from other companies and other industries to move back. And I think, occupancy is still at around 15%. What is the plan for you guys? And what is it? You deal with a lot of tenants. What is the plan for some of the people that you're hearing from?
So I think that, first of all, I think that we've had a lot of brokers who've been in for a while. If you look at our top brokers in New York, like David Falk and Neil Gomacher and Brian Warden, they've been in most of the time.
Yeah.
The difference is the younger brokers haven't come in because they had to travel public transportation. They were afraid. Yeah. But as the vaccines become more predominant, and I'm hoping that May, June, we get everybody who wants to be vaccinated, people will pour back into the office, because in our industry, if you're a broker, you're canvassing and you're meeting and you're networking and you're mentoring, you want to be in the office. As far as the tenants go, look, I think there's going to be a two-part evolution to this, right? I think there's going to be industries in the technology business that are going to say, you could pick 3 or 4 days a week you want to work in the office, and you could pick 1 or 2 days you want to work at home. Nothing wrong with that, right? But I would say the majority of the companies would like their brokers back in the office. And I think you'll see by Labor Day, 100% of the brokers who want to be in the office, I believe, will be in the office. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some industries that, remote work is probably okay.
Do you feel like it's sort of become a habit now? I mean, it's been over a year and people are working from home. Some people like it, but I agree with you. A lot of people don't. A lot of people that we talk to.
Well, we like it. Well, we like it when we go on vacation, but that doesn't mean that that's what we're going to do 52 weeks a year. There's a lot to like about working at home during this period, because it's a finite piece of space where you can have your kids come to live with you. You can take lunch, somewhere other than your kitchen if you want to, if you can, if you have an area you can go to. So I don't think it's habit. I think it's necessity till now, and we've gotten the ability to do it well but it doesn't mean we don't miss the interaction and the camaraderie and the mentorship and the meetings. Look, I do think there'll be some changes. I don't think anybody flies around the country or the world for one meeting, right? I think Zoom is a great tool, and it's not going to go away after this, and it will save companies money on business travel. So I think there will be some changes that come out of this, but there'll be positive changes. There'll be efficient changes. There'll be fiscal changes.
It's amazing. Every time we hit these sort of obstacles in history, the thing that brings us out of it is always a surprise to everybody. Like, it's always something that nobody sort of saw coming. And it's like, wow, I didn't know this could happen to you.
Well, Bill Gates saw it coming, and he said it.
Yeah.
He didn't call it COVID.
Yeah, right.
He said the biggest threat to us is some kind of non-defensive, it wouldn't be political, right? And so
and just really put everything into a halt.
Yes.
And so as far as I don't know if you traveled at all this past year, but we have an office in Miami, so I've gone down there several times, and it's just I feel like when you're in New York and you're reading New York media, and you're sort of in this bubble where you really feel like COVID really has an impact on everything and everyone in every way. And then you go to a place like Miami, and I'm not saying they're doing it right or they're doing it wrong, but it just seems like a whole different world. I don't know if you've had a chance to go to this. My friends are going to work there. People are going to, the restaurants are packed. There's and the size of restaurants there, and they have like waits, and so on and so forth. So I feel like they're living their life, and we're sort of like in this bubble, living a different life.
Look, this is why America is America, because we have the freedom to do things that other countries don't get. My daughter got married down in Florida, but she got married in her grandmother's backyard with 17 people and a Zoom with 300, right? And I think Florida has done some things well. They kept their economy going. They got the supply chain right on the vaccine, right? And so I look, we don't want to make this a political discussion, right? Obviously, for a while, it became a political discussion. Masks, no masks, testing, no testing, right? Keep the economy open, not. But I think that what I believe is that people are entitled to make decisions about their life. And that's what makes this country great, to have the freedom of speech and choice and expression and religion, et cetera. And so I don't point the finger at any state on how they've handled it or not handled it. Some have handled it better than others, obviously. Some have had worse cases than others. I'm just hoping that we all learn a lot from this, and in September, we're back close to whatever we would describe as normal.
Yeah, no, I hope you're right. Jimmy, any final thoughts, life lessons?
Well, I'm asthmatic, so I was very happy to get the vaccine. I got it down in Florida because I knew that with asthma and being able to get it at age 65, I could get it. Mm-hmm. Life lessons, if you haven't learned this in the last 12 months, it's your health and your family is everything in the world. And if you are somebody with fire in the belly, somehow or other in this country, you will figure out how to be successful. And I think that we need to take care of each other and everybody else that's less fortunate than we are. They talk about white privilege, and I'm not sure as an older person I could actually describe what it is, but I do know that growing up white, even with no money, gave me advantages that so many don't have. I don't know that I learned that, but it was highlighted to me. And I think this country will continue to be great only if, and it's hard right now, if the country could come together on some things and try to take this as a terrible way to get a lesson on how great this country should be and could be.
Well, really appreciate your time. Thank you for everything. And thank you to Burton for sponsoring us today.